Please be seated. You remember right around Christmas the discovery of a pocket of homes in Nazareth. About 50 homes were discovered in a neighborhood just on the edge of the city, and these homes date from roughly the time of Jesus. It's led some archaeologists and some pontificators to wonder whether or not one of these homes might be the very home of Jesus. Certain archaeologists have said that if Jesus didn't inhabit one of these homes, he certainly knew of this pocket, this little development neighborhood, and might very well have traveled in and out of the place. And it's led the newspapers to refer to these homes as Jesus-era homes, which I think is very interesting. That of all the people that lived in the first century, these homes are so closely connected with Jesus that they were referred to with that blanket statement, Jesus era. A lot of people lived in the first century, but apparently they don't wind up connected with this little neighborhood. I think it's a testament to our fascination with Jesus' life, especially the bits upon which the scriptures remain absolutely silent. So much of Jesus' life is an absolute mystery. The Gospels of Mark and John include no material about Jesus' birth at all. They begin with right around the time of Jesus' baptism and use that to mark the beginning of his public ministry. Matthew and Luke contain the birth narratives, but they tell the stories in very different ways. Matthew through the eyes of Joseph, in a sense, and Luke through the eyes of Mary. Matthew contains the story of the flight of the Holy Family to Egypt to flee from Herod and the people that would harm the child. And Luke tells the story of the circumcision, but leaves the story of the flight to Egypt completely out of it. But Luke provides us with this vignette that we just heard this morning. The only account of anything in the scriptures about Jesus' life between 2 and let's say 30. We have this picture of Jesus, this one little snapshot, 12 years old, becoming a young adult in his culture. But this one little snapshot, I think, tells us so much about Jesus and his family. Jesus was part of a devout family, a family that traveled to Jerusalem for Passover every single year. Now, the distance from Nazareth to Jerusalem is about 65 miles. And in our time, that might not seem like so much, except that when I mention that I'm going to Boston for the day around here, people act as if I'm traveling to the North Pole. So the distance of 65 miles might really mean a lot to you guys. So every year, Jesus and his family travel 65 miles one way with a group of pilgrims. So they're obviously very devout and very faithful. Jesus himself is seen, is portrayed as being very devout. He sat for days in the temple in discussion with teachers. Jesus listened and he asked questions. When he's discovered by his parents, we learn that Jesus is obedient, that he submits to his parents, even if he does occasionally lose track of time. We learn that his mother understood something of what was happening and that she held these moments in her son's life close to her heart. And finally, we learn that Jesus grew in wisdom and curried the favor of God and his fellow human beings. But I still think it's fascinating to back away and try to figure out what is the point of including this story that exists in none of the other Gospels. What is the point of Luke's telling of this story? Now, it's difficult for us as we approach it because we read the story with a certain set of assumptions in mind. We read this story and we're looking for signals that Jesus is divine. We're looking for symbols and signals that he is the boy God, that he is aware of his identity, that he's aware of his role, and that he's headed toward the end of the story, all the rest of the gospel story that we know about him. We're looking for those clues about his divinity.